Today we're going to start from Mishnah and Daf Yomi with base towards the bottom. Thank Hashem we're able to learn every morning. It's the best part of our day. We hope this list of our learning we should have the base of English immediately. Should be also a first name for Jimmy. What's your brother's name? Avram Rafal Ben Sarah. Having the surgery now. Okay, so the Mishnah says like this. Shleisha Achin.
Who's having surgery? Who's having surgery?
His brother, Avram Rafal Ben Sarah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. First Shlema.
The Mishnah starts, Shleisha Achin. You have three brothers. Shnayim mem nesu and shtei achayis. Two of them are married to two sisters. Yeah, I was sitting at in the breakfast in the yeshiva, and someone was telling me about a cousin, the thing, like some said, keep going. I'm learning Yevamos in the morning. I can handle that. Okay, so you have three brothers. Two of them are married, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, married to two sisters. Two of them are married to two sisters, right? Leah and Rachel. Now, it doesn't have to be two sisters because the same halacha would apply. Isha Bita. Leah and Rachel were mother and daughter, right? Isha Baspita, or it could be mother and granddaughter. Isha Baspina, or it's mother and granddaughter, just son's daughter, not daughter's daughter. Same thing, granddaughter. So, and what happened? The Mishnah leaves out the story. And then those two brothers died. And it leaves the third brother with the possibility of doing Yibam or Chalitza on them. The only thing is that because they're sisters, like we were mentioning before, we mentioned this so many times. It's funny, this is coming back up. The Gemara is going to ask it. What does he do? He can only do Chalitza. You can't do Yibam. And as we've explained many times, that there's a prohibition, rabbinic prohibition of achayse kukas. You can't marry the sister of the person that you have an attachment to. It's like a quasi sort of wife. You can't marry two women, or a woman and her sister. You can't marry a woman and her sister. You can't marry two. Right?
I thought it extended a little beyond that. Like you can't marry a sister, whereas the other one would be available.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
so
we're saying, right? I'm saying that the term available,
that's the quasi
is an attachment,
Zika,
which matches. It's called Zika.
You would think that this whole mitzvah of Yibam the purpose is to have the members, at least you should be able to have the number of one brothers.
Right.
Of course, not marry both of them.
Right. That's
one
interesting.
Married, and then or either the other one gets automatically gets pater or give
Very
the second one a
interesting.
chalitza.
Yeah.
You'd think that.
Right.
For the most part.
But over here, what we're saying is that you can only do Chalitza and not
You have to
Yibam.
hold the whole mitzvah.
And we said that that's all rabbinic.
Oh.
So you do Chalitza, of course, on both of them. Because they're not co-wives.
Right.
They're married to two separate brothers.
Two
Different families, right?
Yeah.
Two different batim. Reb Shimon Paiter. Reb Shimon says you don't have to do even Chalitza. Unbelievable. Why do you have to do Chalitza?
Since you can't marry them.
Yeah, Reb Shimon says that it's a daraisa. Yeah, that's the chiddush over here. The Gemara is going to tell us why do you have to repeat this again? We said it already in Mishnayos before. We didn't really spell out Reb Shimon's opinion that it's a daraisa and you don't have to do Chalitza. That's why we're repeating this now. This we also mentioned before. If one of those sisters, Leah or Rachel, happened to be a close relative of the remaining brother, and he can't do Yibam on her, so that woman has no attachment to him. So who is available? Only one sister. There was the Isser Erva. The one of the sisters was a very close relative to the remaining brother. Which means when it comes time for potential Yibam or Chalitza, one of the sisters was totally not available. So there's really only potential for one of them. Oh, one of them, there's no Zakuka. There's no sister that's available. So therefore, there's only one that has potential, and that one gets Yibam or Chalitza, whichever one you want. So Asr ba mutar ba chaysa. What does it mean, mutar ba chaysa? You can do actual Yibam. So Isser mitzvah, Yisr kedusha. Let's say it's not such a close relative. It's just a rabbinic, or it's just a kedusha. It had to do with a kohen. One of them is prohibited for another reason. So then you say choltzes v'lo misyabmais. You still have to do chalitza. Okay, Tanya the Gemara says Tanya. It was taught in a brayso. Reb Shimon paita b'shnei men chalitza min hayibam. The brayso gives us the opinion of Reb Shimon. What's the source? The Reb Shimon says you don't have to do chalitza or yibam on these two sisters. Shenemar v'isha laches lisikach litzrar. A woman and her sister you shall not take. This is talking about a regular marriage. You can't marry two sisters. Regular prohibition. Nothing to do with Yibam or anything like that. You can't marry two sisters. Good morning. The Gemara learns it that you can't marry two sisters. The word litzrar is for it to be a co-wife. The Gemara says when they become co-wives, then you can't marry them. How do they become co-wives? Well, if the two brothers pass away, then they fall to the one brother. At the time that they become co-wives, not literally co-wives, but co-wives bezika.
Is that that's the whole concept
Bezika,
of achos zikukase.
right. That this concept of achos zikukase occurs when the two brothers pass away.
And it goes
Then they come together,
Right, funnels.
funnel down to one family. They become tzares, even though they're not really one family yet, but they're just potential. So then you can't marry them. Reb Shimon has a pasuk, a daraisa, that tells us that you can't do yibam on them, which also means you can't do chalitza. You don't need to do chalitza on them, and they're totally exempt.
If two brothers died two different times, then there would be no problem, right?
Well, if one brother, we're going to see in the next Mishnayos. One brother died first, another one. Here we're talking about that.
But one
At
wants
the end
to
of the
point
case, end of the story is that both are available. There's no yibam, and according to Reb Shimon, there's no chalitza either. According to the Tanakama, there's chalitza. Why? Because according to the Tanakama, it's rabbinic, and according to Reb Shimon, it's a pasuk, it's a daraisa. If it's a daraisa, you don't have to do chalitza there. Okay.
According to the Bible, it's rabbinic.
Yeah.
It's rabbana.
Yeah. Yeah. So what the Rabbanan say is instead of doing yibam, in this case, you should do chalitza. The Rabbanan aren't affecting the deraisa; they're just saying that don't use that other option.
It means according to Rabbanan, if they went ahead and did it.
So it turns out that actually that's going to be a machlekes b'sham and b'silal, which we mentioned in the last Mishnah. B'silal says you have to divorce. You have to get divorced. That they made it very strict. Yeah. Okay. Now the Gemara says, achas. If one of them was a relative. You already said this before. Why are you saying this again? It says Reb Shimon Itzrich. You didn't tell me Reb Shimon's opinion. Once you mentioned Reb Shimon, this is very interesting. You see, what happens if one of them is a relative? Two sisters, one of them is related to the remaining brother. So then the mitzvah is that you can do yibam now, yibam or chalitza, to the one that was not a relative, called the nachris, the strange one, the foreigner. So you do yibam on the foreigner, possibly, if you want. But you said this before. It says, yeah, but you didn't tell me the opinion of Reb Shimon before. Reb Shimon says that you don't do yibam minat Torah. Now we're introducing, according to Reb Shimon, what happens if one of them is a relative? Where you said before you don't do yibam at all. And when one's a relative, then you do yibam on the foreigner. So, because normally if there's two sisters, you don't do chalitza either. Why? Because it's a daraisa. If we're going to allow Yibam now, and we're going to do chalitza now because one of them is a relative, maybe people are going to think that Reb Shimon holds, not Reb Shimon holds, maybe people are going to think that you're supposed to do Yibam mar chalitza on two sisters. And it turns out that that's Issa Daraisa. So we should make a gzeira that even if one of them is a close relative, that you shouldn't do Yibam. You shouldn't do Yibam. It's a gzeira of kazar. If I say that that marrying one of the sisters is only a derabanan, and I understand that if one's a relative, then we would allow it. But if marrying one of those sisters is a deraisa like Reb Shimon holds, then if one of them is a relative, maybe we should make a gzeira that you shouldn't marry them. Either of them, right? So kamash malan that we don't make that gzeira. Okay, now we have the next case. It's a mitzvah. One of them is no. It's a very interesting gzeira. It's we're following Reb Shimon that holds that it's really a deraisa to marry one of those sisters, and now we have a heter for that deraisa. What's the heter? That one of them is a close relative, and so therefore we're going to allow it. The Gemara has had a havamina to say that maybe we shouldn't allow it because in another case where he's not a relative, where it's an issa deraisa, someone may think that it's permissible. So-and-so just married his one of the two sisters, not realizing that was his granddaughter, not his that the rival was his granddaughter. Okay. Isser mitzvah chulu. Let's say it's a shniya. This is we're going to the top of 29. Yeah. So what's happening here is that he's not allowed to marry one of these two sisters because it's a chaysiku kasei. He's not related to he has two sisters-in-law that just became widowed. He can't do yibam on them because each of them is considered attached to him. And so it's considered he's marrying someone whose sister is attached. According to Reb Shimon, that's a deraisa. Now, one of those is related to him. So we said, okay, so they're not both attached. One's related. So who's available for yibam? Only the other one. But let's say the relative is not biblically a prohibited relative to marry. It's only a rabbinically prohibited relative to marry. So what do we say? That you have to do chalitza. Why do you have to do chalitza? According to the Torah, are any of those women permitted for marriage, according to Reb Shimon? Any of those two sisters? Either of the two sisters permitted? The answer is no. Why? Because it's a chaysiku kasei. Reb Shimon has a pasuk for it. One of them, practically you can't marry because there's a rabbinic law that says that woman is considered a relative. So what? So what? Biblically, on a biblical level, both of those women are prohibited, and it's impossible to do yibam, and chalitza should not be required. The Gemara says, "Gzeira mishum miser mitzvah d'alma." What happens if there's a possibility of doing yibam on someone that's a close relative, and someone that's a relative that's called a shniya? Let's say not two sisters, none of this, just a regular, a brother passed away, he leaves a widow, and that widow happens to be a shniya, a great aunt to the remaining brother.
Like a second cousin also? Or
well, it was one of those 8 shniyas that we had. Or Reb Chia's shniyas was another 6. I forget how many there were. So you can't do yibam. Rabbinically, you can't marry that woman. You have to do chalitza. Of course you do chalitza. So we would say so over here as well. We would say that because by a regular shniya, relative,
even if only one of them,
even just one, you have to do chalitza now where they're two sisters. And one of them is that close relative. Is that relative what's the shniya? if we say that you don't even have to do chalitza, people may say that you don't have to do chalitza on the shnia, which we always do chalitza on the shnia. It's only rabbinic. Prohibited. See, here, the rabbinic prohibition of marrying this woman is, we're viewing it as if we thought we're viewing it as if it's taking off the biblical prohibition of marrying achayse kukasei. The Gemara is saying that's not what we're doing. We're not saying that a rabbinic prohibition is removing a biblical prohibition. It's funny because that the prohibition actually makes it more lenient. It's because now one of them is eligible. So what we're really saying is that it's just a side decree that we're doing chalitza because of some other scenario that could come up that looks similar to this. And okay, Gemara says, there's two sisters here. You were afraid to let them both go without chalitza, because even though biblically you don't need chalitza, but you're afraid that we have to do chalitza. Why? Because it's similar to a shnia. It's a shnia, and people may say that a regular shnia doesn't need chalitza. Now, how many of them were shnias? One of them. So the Gemara says, I get it why you wanted to do chalitza on one of them, because that's a shnia, and you thought maybe people may think that you don't do chalitza on a shnia. But what about the sister? Why you have to do chalitza on her? Gemara says, well, once we did chalitza on the one that's the relative, we do the other one also. It says, Vagabi Ervel Gazrinan. You never said that. We don't say that you have to do, if you don't have to do chalitza on one of them is a very close relative. You don't do chalitza. On the other wife, you make a gzeira of some sort that people may say something. Everyone understands. This is a shnia. By a shnia, we have to make a gzeira. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this position of Reb Shimon carry through to other areas of halakha regarding the relationship between a deraisa and a rabbanon, or is it very specific to this?
It seems like it's just achayse kukasi as a deraisa. Okay. Yeah, because he learns it specifically from this pasuk. Yeah. Yeah, well, the Gemara's question here was that if you have two sisters, one of them was the erva, so we say you can do yibam on the other one. We didn't say that you have to do chalitza on the erva because maybe so you're going to say that something in other cases, and we said that you're just allowed to marry the other sister. Over here, you're saying that you have to do chalitza on both. Why are we saying that? The answer is because people don't understand the shnia part. Erva is very clear. Close relative, everyone knows the halachas. Okay. Next Mishnah. Shleisha Achen. 3 brothers again. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. We should do Larry. Okay.
Fritzer's brother.
Okay. Three brothers.
Rabbi, did you ever watch the Three Stooges? Is that what it is? This is my brother Larry. This is my other brother Larry. This is my other brother Larry. I think it was Daryl. This is my brother Daryl. My other brother Daryl. My other brother Daryl.
Yeah, that would be complicated here.
We'd never follow it.
Yeah. Curly. Right. Okay, so you have 3 brothers. Shnayim Nesuim Shtei Achayis. 2 of them are married to 2 sisters. We've heard this case before. Ve'achad Mufna. Mufna means open. One of them is open.
Open for Yibam?
Yeah, sounds like a bachelor, right? Meisech and Mibali Achayas. One of the ones that was married to the sister, one of the husbands passed away. Also, Mufna Maimer. Okay, now this is the emphasis here. He didn't actually do Yibam yet. He just did Maimer. Maimer is the beginning of a marriage. It's the kedushin. It's like a betrothal. Then the other brother passed away. Now this creates a problem because now he really has two sisters that are eligible for Yibam. Now one of them, he's in this quasi-marriage already. But what happens? What does he do? Does he complete the marriage with one, or now that he has this other Zakuka, this other Zika, does that mess up everything? Bishami says he's already married. The other one goes out without anything. No chalitza, it's his wife's sister.
This quasi-marriage, it's not necessarily a mime or anything or betrothal. It's just someone who could be available.
No, it's more than that. It is mimer.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to give something, he gives it property.
Yeah, it's probably a star or something.
That's pretty much
Yeah.
like if the Torah has it's like pretty much marriage. Almost,
Yeah,
like
the only
stuff
thing
you get
is, the only difference between this and a regular kedushin is that the Torah never told us about a marriage by a yavam and a yavama. The Torah just says that he moves into the house. So this is sort of a rabbinic marriage. It's not according to the Torah, this is totally not required. He just has to, they have relations, and that's his new wife.
But since it's been rabbinic,
In
this case, you'd think that they would have to break up the marriage.
Yeah. In this case, it would be a complete, according to Beis Shammai, this is a full marriage. That's what it looks like. And the other one, the sister, goes out without chalitza, it looks like. Yeah, no chalitza. Basil says, no, this is a real mess. According to Basil, he has to give this woman that he gave mimer to a get. Now, both sisters are now eligible for Yibam or Chalitza, which Yibam is going to be out because they're two sisters. Can't do. So really, you're going to have to do Chalitza, and you have to do Chalitza now on both. You do Chalitza on the one that you just gave a get to. So this one gets a get and Chalitza, and the other one just gets a Chalitza. Zui Shamro, this is the case where they said, vote to him for his wife and vote to him for his wife's. It means he's left without anyone, and he remains a bachelor.
Now, what's about when we learned, the last few pages, that if one first passes away and he's available, you go and quote the first one that's available.
Yeah. If one of them would then pass away afterwards, that would take us back to that case. Yeah. The Gemara says, Zuhi lemuti mai. When you said this is the problematic case, what are you excluding? When you said Zuhi, this is the problematic case, that he had woe to his wife and woe to his wife's sister. It says lemuti hachti Rabbi Yeshua delay of din kavasei. Yeah. There is one other case which is similar to this. That case is where there was a person that was married to a very young girl, under 12, that was married. He married her because the brothers married her off. And anyway, the brother was married to her sister. That was a real wife. Now, the brother dies, the one that was married to the sister, and leaves this older girl a widow. The brother that was married to the younger sister, which theoretically that marriage could be absolved without a get. The young girl can say, I'm out of this marriage, and he walks away. And if that's the case, then he should have to do Yibam on the other one. Right now, he can't do Yibam because of the marriage. So Rabbi Yeshua says that woe to his wife, he has to tell the girl to do Miyun, and then he can't do Chalitza he can't do Yibam on the other one. He has to do Chalitza on the other one also. Basically, Reb Shimon sets this, or not Reb Shimon, Reb Yeshua sets this up, just like we said over here. Oilay al ishtai, oilay al eisha sachiv. This is oilay al ishtai, oilay al achaisa, al eisha sachiv. Exactly the same thing. The only thing is that what our Mishnah says it zuhi sha'amru. That means that we're rejecting the halacha over there that Rabbi Yeshua says, and we would have followed those other opinions, whether like Rabbi Gamliel, like Rabbi Eliezer, that either he stays married or he can do yibam on the other. So one of the other opinions, but not the way Rabbi Yeshua puts it, that woe to his wife and woe to his brother's wife.
This the one that was the one that married this girl that was young. That's a bigger oil because they were actually married, living in the same house for 5 or 6 years, and then say bye-bye.
Right. Right. And in our case, it was just mimer was performed.
They weren't married. I mean,
Right.
officially.
Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer is a Amira in Eretz Yisrael, and he's explaining something that was said in the Mishnah, and the other Amiraim are going to try to clarify what he means, or he makes a statement here that's we're going to have several opinions about. It seemed very clear from the Mishnah that Beishamai said, you did Maimer on one of the sisters before the other brother died. That's already his wife. Then the other brother dies. So what? I mean, that's very sad. But he doesn't have to do Yibam or Chalitza on the other one because he was already married. Rabbi Eliezer says no. That's not that's like a simplistic way of understanding Beishamai. That's not really what Beishamai said. Beishamai, it's not a full wife, Maimer. That if he would want to divorce her, he would just be able to give a get without chalitza. That's not the case. The only thing that Maimer does is it allows him to stick with his wife, and he doesn't have an attachment to the other wife, to the other one. That's all that it does. But if he would want to divorce her, he would need to do a get, and he would need to do chalitza as well. It's not a full marriage.
It also prevents the other brothers from taking care of you.
Yeah, that's true. Amar Rav Avin. Rav Avin says, you know what? We have a Mishnah that says this. Beishamai says, in a different case. You see, in our case, it's very interesting. One brother passed away, and Maimer was performed on the wife. Everything was acceptable. Then the other brother passed away. Beishamai says, don't worry about that. The Maimer was performed. It's already a marriage. He stays married to the one that he married. Now it's not a full marriage, etc. There was another case where both brothers passed away at the same time. And there were two sisters that were eligible. The rule was that you don't do Yibam, you do Chalitza. Let's say he did Yibam. Now we have a Machlekes Beishamai and Beisil. Beisil said they have to get divorced. Beishamai says you can stay married. What does that mean? Yikaimu in L'chatchila la. You can only stay married. Or L'chatchila, you weren't allowed to do the Maimer. It's only that you did the Maimer. Okay, now. If we don't accept Rebbe Lezer, we would say that it's an actual, it's a real marriage. Then we have a way of getting these two sisters married, because I know that you can't just do a full yibam, which just means that you do that they move in and they're intimate. I know that they can't do that. Why? Because it's his wife is attached. It's a sister that there's two attachments there and of sisters. But there is a loophole. There is a way of sneaking in through the back door. How do you do that? You do mimer, which was acceptable. No one said you can't do mimer. You do mimer. That's a rabbinic mimer. Oh, now you once the mimer, so then you can already finish the marriage. So why are you telling me that you kayim, that you're only allowed to stay married? Do a mimer, which was acceptable, l'chatchila, and then then they can finish the marriage and let the both brothers do that. The Gemara says,
But isn't the mimer only acceptable because the other brother hasn't passed away yet?
yeah.
Right? Because
However-
it only becomes a
however-
problem after the second brother passes away. The mimer in the
However-
beginning is fine.
Right. However, the mimer is a rabbinic sort of marriage, which once it takes place, it's considered that the wife is acquired to the husband. Now, acquired is not.
Yeah,
a
but
good word, but
I think my point is that if the second brother passes away, he would not be able to perform the mimer on the
yes, so
first one.
we're asking now that he should be allowed to, because really the Torah doesn't say that you can't do mimer, and the rabbis didn't say that you can't do mimer. They only said that you can't do yibam. So mimer would be allowed. Now, if mimer really worked, that it's a full marriage, then let each brother do mimer, and then it's going to work. So it must be that mimer doesn't really work as a full marriage. But one second, hold your thoughts for a second. The Gemara says, Elamai. So what are you recommending? So now what? This is a very common that when there's a problem, so people come up with a solution. So a lot of times the Gemara comes up with the solution. The Gemara says, I get the problem, but I don't get how the solution resolves the problem. This is very common. So Elamai, so what do you want to say? So Gemara, do you want to say that it's not a kinyan gomer? It just pushes off the other sister. So now you're back with the same problem. If it pushes off the other sister, so the Mishnah that you quoted doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't prove Rebbe Lazar's right. Say, oh, if Rebbe Lazar would be wrong, then that Mishnah doesn't fit. Well, guess what? Even if Rebbe Lazar's right, that Mishnah doesn't fit. Because if it's possible to do mimer, then let him do mimer, and then mimer will make the marriage work. According to you, even according to the way Rebbe Lazar learns, it's possible to do mimer. So you have a kasha on the Mishnah either way. So how are you going to resolve this? You're going to say like this: mimer de teira dachi disur lei dachi. Hachinami mimer afilu mandamar mimer kind of kinigam mimer de teira kanim disur lei kanim. Yosef, this is your thought was basically this point.
Mhm.
What you're going to have to say is like this: whether I learn that mimer is a kinyan gomer, whether I learn that kinyan gomer means it's a full marriage, or whether I say mimer is a doiche, just pushes off the other sister. So either way, the mimer is only acceptable if you could have done a yibam as well. So what case would that be? One brother passed away and leaves his wife. Now, it turns out his wife has a sister that's happily married to another brother. But right now, there's one sister that's a widow. One of those sisters is a widow, and he's allowed to do yibam. And instead of doing yibam, he does mimer. So that mimer, if you want to go with a kinyan gomer, it's a kinyan gomer. You want to go with that it's a doicha, it's doicha. Then the other brother passed away. So we'll say that marriage is acceptable. But in a case where there's two sisters there, so whatever is happening is be'isser. You couldn't have done yibam. And instead you did mimer. So we said that's only b'diavad. That's only after the fact. After the fact, it's going to be a machlekes beisham and beisil if it works. Okay. Rav Ashi Masni Hachi. Rav Ashi learns the words of Rebbe Lazar a little different. It says like this: Amar Rebbe Lazar leitem mimer lebeisham aidacha dechi gemura. Don't say that mimer is a full rejection of the other sister. V'tzarasa chalitza nami loy, and the other sister doesn't need chalitza because you did mimer, and that's as if it's yibam. Eladeicha meshayerhu. It leaves over the other sister with the requirement of chalitza. Amar above and afanana mitanina. It's similar to the way we learned it before, but it's just we're talking about if the other sister requires chalitza. The first way of learning it was if mimer would require chalitza itself. If you give a get plus chalitza. Now we're saying, what about the other sister? Rabavin comes along and says, afanana mitanina. We learned this in the Mishnah. Bishamei mikaimu. Bishamei says that they can stay married. That's talking about when there were two sisters that were up for yibam or chalitza, and so therefore the yibam is not an option, so there can only be chalitza. And then came along one of them and did a marriage. So we said, according to Beis Shammai, I think it was he did the marriage, right? And then so we said that they can stay married. Our question before was, let them do mimer and get into the marriage in the first place through that back door, right? That was our recommendation. So,
how can you do mimer on the second one?
well, the other brother would do mimer on the one does mimer on this one does mimer on the other one, and then they each married to two sisters to separate, right? Okay, separate house, but. If you would say that mimer, according to Beis Shammai, is a full rejection of the other sisters, let each brother do mimer and come in through the back door into that marriage, and then it would be acceptable. The Gemara says, Beis Shammai, what about our case? Beis Shammai says, Ishtayimai. Ravashi, the way you're suggesting, what Rebbe Lazar is saying, is that mimer does not fully work, and the other sister needs chalitza. That doesn't fit with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, mimer was performed on the first brother, on the first brother's wife that passed away, right? Then the other brother passed away. We said he's already married. The other one is nothing, no chalitza, no yibam, because it's his wife's sister. According to the way Rabbi Lazar is being explained now, according to Ravashi, the sister requires chalitza. The explanation mamish doesn't fit with our Mishnah. Comes along the Ravashi and answers, Eli Yevamos Daf lekula chazi lemiktsasa. Yevamos lechazi lekula chazi miktsasa. It's not true. We have a very good teretz. The teretz is that when does mimer really work? When you could have done yibam. A woman that's chazia lekula, that you could have had every option available, then when you do mimer, that's a full, that rejects the other sister entirely. You don't need chalitza on the other one. But over here, because you couldn't have done yibam either, in that other case, where it says yikaimu. So by us, in our Mishnah, where one brother passed away, only, and mimer was done, that was a fully acceptable mimer. When the other brother passed away, you don't even need chalitza on the way. But over there, where both brothers passed away, then the mimer is not a full dechia, and you would have to do chalitza on the other one as well, on both. Okay.
Why don't we use the excuse we used last week and say they weren't really marriages that were sisters?
Yeah, we said that.
Where the guy really didn't have to do anything because it wasn't really sisters, because the mothers were really married.
It was
one
one woman was,
brothers,
yeah,
but they neither of them really married the woman. So
Right.
you end up with two sisters.
right.
I think the sisters.
Yeah, that was a discussion. That was a discussion in Reb Chia's statement about Asura Lizeh, that all 15 were Asura Lizeh, Mutaris Lizeh, would only be possible in a case where they weren't married. Yeah, so over here we already have the scenario where I have two sisters. Boy, Rabba has a question. Maimer le Beishamai. Beishamai said that Maimer is quite a serious ceremony. It makes the woman basically married for practical purposes, all practical purposes to this man. So, Nesuin I say, Erisin I say. Does it do Nesuin or does it do Erisin? Nesuin is the chuppah part of the marriage. Does Maimer do the chuppah? Does Maimer just do the ring, the Erisin? You know, in our marriages, there's two parts. We do them both under the same on the same canopy. but originally it was done possibly a year apart. They gave a ring, and then afterwards he brought her into the house a year later. A year mit a mitvach. That was the expression. A year and a Wednesday was the Yiddish expression. That was because Basilanissus Le'emeravi. So it was like a long time. Yeah. So
she was asked to be anybody else during that time.
yeah,
She wasn't allowed to get married.
if she had relations during that time to someone else, it was like a misa. She's married. She just didn't move into her husband's house yet. The marriage wasn't consummated.
Right.
So the Rabba's question is Maimer, according to Beis Shammai, which is basically a marriage. What is it? Is it Nesuin or Eirson? Amalei Abai el Mai Hilchasa. You know, Abai is a student of Rabba. He grew up in Rabba's house. He says, explain your question. What are you referring to? He says, Ilay Mali Yarsha. Are you talking about, does the husband inherit her if she passed away? L'tamala, if the husband is a kayan, should he go to the cemetery because it's his wife? L'hafir nedereh, to annul her vows. Hashta arusa ba'alma. Let's say it wouldn't have been Maimah. Let's say it would have been a real kedushin. Tani Reb Chia Ishtay Arusa. We have a statement from Reb Chia that a betrothed wife, loy einen. If she passed away, the husband is not an einen. It means he could still eat from kachim in the base of Mikdash. It's not considered that he's in that state of mourning. Loy metamala. He doesn't go to the cemetery if he's a kayan. V'chein hi loy enenes. She doesn't mourn for him. What is that relevant for? If she's allowed to eat kachim.
Oh, that's in sugar.
If she's allowed, yeah, there would be shiva as well. V'lei metamalai, v'lei metamaslai. Is she supposed to become tummy for him? Rashi has to pshatim. We never heard that a woman has an issue, even if she's a daughter of a kayan or a wife of a kayan. If she's allowed to go to a cemetery, it's only on the men of the kayanim that have that issue. So what's the Reb Chia saying here? Two pshatim. One pshat is lav dafka. We said the other one, so we say go this way. The other pshat is that maybe it's referring to before a holiday, she's supposed to be pure. Shalosh Regalim, Beregal. So should she become tamei or not? Mesa, if she passes away, ain't a yarsha, she doesn't inherit. He doesn't inherit Mesa. Ain't a yarsha, she doesn't inherit him. Mace who? No, if she dies, ain't a yarsha, he doesn't inherit her. Mace who? If he dies, Goiva ksubasa, she gets her ksuba. Avad bam. Well, at the kedushin, at the there's a ksuba. If the Gemara says over there that this is if he said that he's making the ksuba from he had to specify that the ksuba is being made from the kedushin. Yeah, this wouldn't be automatic. But avad b'maimer mibai. Now you want to say that maimer should be more than a kedushin, that he should be allowed to hafir nederah, to be metame and all of this. No one, where do you get even that thought that this should happen? So Rabban needs to re-explain his question. Question must be, does Maimer take it out of the status of the regular Yibum laws and put it into a regular marriage situation? How does marriage work? Well, you do kedushin, and then you do nesu, and then you do a chuppah. Does Maimer Now, usually you didn't have to do mimer. The rabbi said that this is one of the ways. But if you do yibam without mimer, what would happen? He would just move in and live with her. Now that he did mimer, is it now following a regular marriage pattern, or does it go back to the yibam pattern? So the question is, Linyan Masir L'chuppah mai. Nesuan Isa v'leibayim Masir L'chuppah. Should there be a chuppah? Idilma Erison Isa by Masir L'chuppah. Or maybe it just did Erison, and you still need a chuppah. He says like this. The Rabbi responds, Hashta layavad b'maimer. If you didn't do maimer, ksiv yavama yava yala bal karcha. That the yavam is allowed to just consummate the marriage without any preparatory ceremonies, kedushin or whatever. Avad b'maimer mivayi. If he did maimer, do you have a question if they are allowed to consummate the marriage? You didn't even need to do mimer in the first place. Now that you did mimer, you're going to say that you can't just consummate the marriage. Says no. Question is that we have a rule that whoever does mimer, the other brothers, the other potentials here, jump away. What does this mean?
Because mine, the other brothers don't have the right to her anymore.
Right. When I learned it this morning, it said, that for some reason he's going to require a chuppah. What do you have written there? Why would he now require a chuppah?
It says by performing mimer, he increased the Yevamos attachment to him.
And then?
It says he should certainly be allowed to consummate the yibum without her consent.
Yeah. Now go a drop further.
So Tosfos says something he doesn't know about.
If the mimer affects only the state of a Rusin, then she will call it consensual Rusin, like no other married woman does it.
Yeah.
What happens with her against her will, he does not apply her fault.
Let me look at this one. Yeah.
Where do they get the fact that he can do this against her will? It doesn't say that in the Pasuk.
Yeah. Yevama Yava Yala. He just come.
Yavola against the will.
Yeah. What is the ruling? Is the Yavam obligated to enter the wedding canopy in the manner that he would with any other betrothed woman or not? This is a dilemma. Does levirate betrothal create a full-fledged marriage bond, whereby the Yavama would not require further delivery to a wedding canopy? Or does levirate betrothal perhaps create only betrothal, or she would require delivery to the wedding canopy? I thought we said that before, that we already answered that.
Oh, marriage can mean many things.
Oh, no. So I was reading the wrong one. So question is relevant, as I say, that anyone who performs levirate betrothal with his Yavama causes the levirate bond to be removed from him, and he is no longer considered subject of levirate marriage. Instead, a standard bond of betrothal applies. Therefore, it is appropriate to ask if this act of levirate betrothal is similar to a standard betrothal insofar as the wedding canopy is concerned, and consequently, the women would be required to enter the wedding canopy. Alternatively, perhaps the halach of levirate still applies somewhat. Does the performance of levirate betrothal weaken the capacity of intercourse to establish levirate marriage on its own? That's the question. Usually we say that he can have relations with her, and that's considered the full marriage. But maybe because he did mimer, it weakens that ability that he has, and now he has to do a regular chuppah. So Tashema, come and listen. Shimeris Yavam. Bein Yavam Echad Bein Shnei Yavamim. Doesn't matter how many brothers there are that are eligible for marriage. Rabbi Eliezer Emer Yafer. We're talking about, can he annul the vows? Rabbi Eliezer says rather, he can annul the vows. Rabbi Yeshua says, basically Rabbi Eliezer says there's a concept of Zika, and he's already considered the husband, even if there's two of them. Rabbi Yeshua says no, only if there's one. The Zika is much stronger if there's only one brother. Rabbi Kiva, there's no Zika. Rabbi Kiva, we get why the husband can't annul the vows, because he holds there's no Zika. Rabbi Yeshua, lechad yesh Zika, l'trei ain't Zika. I also get, according to Rabbi Yeshua, why he can only annul the vow if there's one, because we hold Zika only works with one brother. Rabbi Eliezer, and he nami the kasav yesh Zika. But if there's Zika, okay, good, there's Zika. But bishlam lechad mefer l'trei amai. But if there's two potential, how does it work that he annuls the vow? One of them did Maimer. I know there's two brothers. One of them did Maimer, and that's going to work. So according to Beis Shammai, the Maimer makes him into the husband. If we say that Maimer is like the Nesuin, it's like the full marriage, then that's why the husband is allowed to annul the vow. But if you say it only does the betrothal, how is he allowed to annul the vow? But we have a Mishnah. Where's the father? When it comes to Erison, if the girl is 12, he can't annul the vow on his own. He needs the father as well to annul the vow. If the wife makes a vow, it's the husband and father together that have to annul. Where's the father in this? The father's here. The father also says that he annuls the vow. According to Rabbi Eliezer, how was he allowed to annul the vow? We said that it doesn't do the full marriage. He says, I was just saying that a get wouldn't work alone. But you need chalitza as well. Did I say that you can't annul the vows? It's a marriage for the vows. Another pshat you could say, Rabbi Eliezer, you anyways don't have a good answer according to Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak. According to Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak, you have to say that the father's annulling the vow and the husband. And it doesn't say a plural that they annul the vows. It just says he annulled the vows. He annuls. It doesn't say they annul. Rather, what are we saying? There must be that something else happened here. What happened was that the husband said that he's going to support her. If the husband's going to support her, even though they weren't fully married, when a woman takes a vow, she doesn't take it without her husband's consent. Why? Because the husband's still doing everything for her, he's supporting her. So it's up to the husband to annul it, to absolve that vow. So in this case, even though it wasn't a full marriage, but the husband had already accepted to give her full support, so all the vows would be conditional on his consent. Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Just